We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds, and this is a major function of the CIA.
Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
Welcome back to Notify America. In the world of global politics, geopolitics, global power, and the center of power and influence comes from where? The WEF, the World Economic Forum, a group founded in 1971 by German engineer Klaus Schwab. This is the guy, all right, a real comic book type villain, at least he appears that way, someone you'd see in a Marvel movie playing the bad guy. Well, one of the many things he and his organization does is coordinate and convene meetings with world leaders, heads of technology and STEM type fields, heads of industry, kings, queens, princes, princesses, all attend these WEF gatherings. It's a who's who of powerful elite. And he is at the center of it for whatever reason. However, he's managed to pull this off, and it's quite a feat to pull off. He's positioned himself and his organization as a middleman to the world of the global elite. Now, in a recent WEF gathering or conference, which they do often, it's very odd, by the way, they have these like summits where they speak publicly and publish these videos. They like to telegraph what they're planning to do. You know, of all of them discussing their plans for the world, for world events, for the direction all of these heads of state and these heads of industry plan to push us toward. Some of the stuff these people say is pretty far out there and just unbelievable. But this clip is making the rounds, and it shows Klaus Schwab and the founder of Google, Sergey Brin, discussing AI, artificial intelligence, and take a listen to what he says. Watch.
The technology now is, and digital technologies mainly have an analytical power. Now we go into a predictive power, and we have seen the first examples, and your company very much involved into it. But then the next step could be to go into a prescriptive mode, which means you do not even have to have elections anymore, because you can already predict, and afterwards you can say, why do we need elections? Because we know what the result will be.
Now, what's interesting is Elon Musk actually talked about Sergey Brin last year, how he used to be really good friends with the guy, and he told this story about how Sergey, one night after drinking and like hanging out, started talking about AI with Elon and all that it could do to clean up the planet, organize civilization, stuff like that. The way that Elon tells it, he started to get a bit creeped out by it and began pushing back, leading to Sergey calling him out for being a humanist, which seems to be what this organization has in common. They all appear to have that same kind of ideology. This is the same guy, by the way, who came up with the Great Reset. You hear so much about that. Him and Prince Charles, or now King Charles, worked on it together. It was their brainchild. Here's what Vivek Ramaswamy wrote about this on X this morning. Gotta give it to Klaus Schwab. No one else says the quiet part out loud in the voice of a movie-level dystopian character quite like him. He's visibly giddy about the idea of eliminating elections. Worth watching this clip. Can't make this stuff up. And he's right. He did seem a bit giddy, right, in that clip. Looking forward to it almost. And Klaus Schwab loves to telegraph his plan. So who is this guy? Well, he is as anti-American as you can get. Watch him in this clip explaining how he believes libertarianism is a threat to the system, what he calls to the system that we've built. Watch this.
You have this anti-system movement. What we are seeing is a revolution against the system. So fixing the present system is not enough. Now there is, of course, an anti-system which is called libertarianism, which means to tear down everything which creates some kind of influence of government into private lives. It's dismantling the system.
Now that clip tells you everything that you need to know. I'm a libertarian at my core. I don't want anyone telling me what to do. I want government out of our lives as much as reasonably possible. They should only be there to maintain order with civil services, protect us, provide protection. police departments, fire departments, that kind of thing, the military, small government, not intervening in anyone's personal lives. The more power you give them, the more they tend to abuse it. This country was built to prevent that kind of thing, prevent a centralization of power as much as possible. It's why we have the states and state constitutions, to limit the executive's power. We escaped the monarch in Great Britain because of this shit. The more power you give them, the more they want. Take taxes, for instance. There was no income tax for the most part. I think there was for a period, but for the most part, there was no income tax prior to 1913. The Democratic Party added an amendment on the ratification of the 16th Amendment, and they said at the time it was only temporary, just to make up for lost revenues. Well, 100 years later, was it temporary? Started out as a couple percent tax. Now look what we have, a massive tax system, federal taxes that grab 37%, state taxes depending where you live. California, for instance, I think they're around 14% state tax, and if they could, they'd probably raise it to 50, 60, hell, maybe even 70% like France does. But this is so much more than just taxes, folks. It's the ideology of these people. Look at his contempt for libertarianism, talking about building up the great system that he wants to form and create that we've already built, he says. Libertarianism is freedom. It promotes letting you live a free life, a life without government sticking their nose into your personal life, into your business. And you see this seeping through in the policies that they promote. The WEF's goal is to build up a global system, a global government. Biggest impediment, though, to that is America. They already know that they have China on lockdown. China's easy, but America has protections for shit like this. But the more power we give them, the easier we make it for them. All right, that wraps up this episode. If you enjoyed it, got something out of it, press the like button. If you didn't, that's all right too. Either way, I appreciate you watching.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds, and this is a major function of the CIA.
Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.